Bill Gates once said that DNA is like a software program, only much more complex than anything we have ever devised. And that is a truth. Human beings, with all of our sophistication, all of our imagination, and all of our intelligence, have not yet been able to come up with something even remotely close to DNA. But does that mean that the How to Build a Human Being instruction booklet that's packaged into each of our 100 trillion cells needs an author? Or can it be explained without one? The scientific answer to that question is simply we don't know. The arrival of DNA on the scene is one of those big gaps in our current knowledge. 3 options, however, have been put forward in an attempt to explain it. The first is that a kind of pre-biological natural selection may have been in operation. Pre-biological simply means before the emergence of life. Natural selection is the process by which those mutations which are better suited to their environment are preserved. The problem here, as Stephen Myers explains, is that in order for there to be in operation a process of pre-biological natural selection, there already needs to be in place something which is capable of reproduction, and which, like DNA, is already rich in information. As Theodosius Dobzhansky, the noted geneticist and evolutionary biologist, has observed, pre-biological natural selection is a contradiction in terms. A second option has simply been to put the arrival of DNA down to random chance. Now, this idea has been almost universally rejected by scientific experts in the origins of life. Nevertheless, it still persists in popular culture. And the reasoning goes something like this. We know that a lot of time, an almost incomprehensible amount of time, has elapsed since the Big Bang. Surely there has been plenty of opportunity for amino acids to randomly interact and for life to emerge. What few in popular culture actually realise is that mathematically this is an impossibility. The probabilities of forming a rather short functional protein at random would be 1 chance in 100,000 trillion 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 trillion, or a 10 with 25 zeros after it. A minimally complex cell would need between 300 and 500 protein molecules. No, that's just one cell in the human body, and a minimally complex one at that. Plus, all of this would have to be accomplished in a mere 100 million years, which is the approximate window of time between the Earth cooling and the first microfossils found. A third option laid on the table is that of chemical self-ordering, first proposed by Dean Kenyon in his book Biochemical Predestination. The question was asked, could not the 4 letters of the DNA alphabet have created itself as a natural consequence of the attractions between chemicals and affinities of amino acids? Now, it's true that amino acids in proteins and the 4 letters of the DNA alphabet do have some self-ordering capabilities. Already mentioned is the fact that there are only 4 possible combinations of base pairs. In addition, these base pairs are chemically bonded to the backbone of the DNA molecule. These self-ordering capabilities, however, and chemical attractions fall far short of accounting for the vast informational complexity of DNA. Let me explain. It's the arrangement of letters in our alphabet that create words that convey meaning, in the same way that the sequencing of the base pairs in the DNA molecule convey the information necessary to create any form of life. What seals the case against the probability that natural affinities and chemical attractions may have caused DNA to self-order is the fact that there are no affinities or attractions whatsoever between those base pairs themselves. They cannot order themselves into any meaningful sequence any more than the 26 letters of our Latin alphabet can order themselves to create the entire works of William Shakespeare. That kind of order has to come from somewhere else, and that is why Dean Kenyon, who wrote the book Biochemical Predestination, went on to repudiate his own conclusions about the chemical origins of life. He said, "This new realm of molecular genetics is where we see the most compelling evidence of design on Earth." No one argues that DNA conveys information, vast amounts of information. Our own DNA can be thought of as an instruction booklet entitled How to Build a Human Being. Now, in order to convey information, you need something known as specified complexity. Sounds complex, but actually it's very simple. It contains two elements. The first is irregularity in sequencing. If in producing this video I simply repeated one word over and over and over again, it would be boring, dull and repetitive. More than that, it would convey no meaning and information whatsoever, and you'd probably switch off after a minute, if that. This video, this dialogue of mine, however, is an irregular sequencing of words, but that is not all. If it were, it would just be a random collection of words arranged in no particular order, and you would either conclude I was a babbling fool and switch off, or you'd watch the entire video purely for your own entertainment. However, this irregular sequencing of words must conform to the second component of specified complexity, which is a specific set of functional requirements. In other words, the rules of vocabulary and grammar. These are understood by you, and you recognise my ramblings as information. You also, hopefully, recognise that information as indicating the presence of intelligence. Now I want to pause and invoke uniformitarian logic here. Now what is uniformitarian logic, I hear you cry? Well, let me give you the definition from the easily accessible Wikipedia. It says, uniformitarianism in the philosophy of science is the assumption that natural processes operating in the past are the same as those that can be observed operating in the present. Its methodological significance is frequently summarized in the statement, "The present is the key to the past." As Strobel states, according to uniformitarian logic, our present knowledge of cause and effect relationships should guide our reconstruction of what caused something to arise in the past. Okay, so what relevance does that have here? Well, human language indicates the presence of human mind and intelligence, and DNA is recognizable as language. And it's a language which accomplishes a truly staggering task, the creation of all life, past, present and future, in all of its bewildering variety. It's a language that cannot have ordered itself. It's a language which cannot have happened by chance, and it's a language which cannot have come about through a process of pre-biological natural selection. Using uniformitarian logic, to me, DNA as a language indicates, not proves, the existence of a language giver, of God. Now, whilst we must respect scientists' honest admission of ignorance as to the origins of DNA, I believe the existence of an intelligent creator God to be the best and most logical explanation based upon our current knowledge. Now, there'll be those who want to say this is yet another argument from ignorance, another case of God of the gaps. Let me just say this is not an argument from ignorance. It's not a case of trying to shoehorn God into any old gap. It is what is called an inference to the best explanation. As Myers explains, we know that intelligence has the causal powers to produce information. We're not inferring to that entity on the basis of what we don't know, but on the basis of what we do know. Furthermore, information is the hallmark of mind, and purely from the evidence of genetics and biology, we can infer the existence of a mind that's far greater than our own.